Hello, everyone. I would like to begin by introducing myself and introducing my vision for this channel. To begin with, I am an MS4 at St. George's University who recently matched into their top choice specialty, which was family medicine at Texas Tech University. I'm a US IMG, was born and raised in Texas, and I am excited to return to Texas to pursue my career and to complete my residency. My vision for this channel is to be able to give back to US MD and DO students, as well as US IMG and non-US IMG students, in terms of preparing for board exams and covering topics related to many of these board exams. My first video will be on the USMLE Step 1 dedicated schedule that I put together. I will subsequently be releasing a video for my Step 2 schedule. And then as I start to make my own preparations for the USMLE Step 3 exam, I intend on posting weekly lecture series and case studies that relate to that particular exam and topics that will be covered on it, and hopefully guide you as I prepare for my Step 3 exam. With that being said, let's get into my first video, which is going to cover my 8-week Step 1 dedicated study schedule. To get started with, I think that there are a couple of resources that really allowed me to be confident in going into the exam and confident coming out of the exam that I was relatively sure that I had passed. Of course, these resources are not going to work for everyone and they're not all required, but I think they all played a hand in making me be as successful as I was on the USMLE Step 1 exam. The first resource, and I think by far the most important one, is going to be Free MedTube. This is a resource that you will be able to use throughout your medical school career, as well as into residency, and likely even as an attending physician as you learn and acquire more knowledge. Primarily, I used Free MedTube to prepare for my Step 1 exam due to the fact that it had Sketchy, Boards and Beyond, Pixarize, and online med-ed videos, which all were instrumental in helping me to acquire knowledge that I previously either did not have or did not understand. The second resources that I think are very important to obtain for preparation of the Step 1 exam is the First Aid Step 1 book. I bought this book on the first day of medical school, and I began to read through it throughout my first and second years, take notes in it, jot down ways to remember things and questions that I continued to get incorrect throughout my first and second year. That way, whenever it came down to using the book to review for Step 1, all that material was already there. Another good resource, and one that I think is absolutely non-negotiable, is Pathoma. Pathoma is a book and video combination that allows you to cover pathology topics in a very concise but easily understandable way. I think the next most important resource that I personally used was the free Dirty Medicine YouTube videos for a couple of different topics that weren't really covered anywhere else. Now let's get to the question banks. I personally used UWorld throughout my second year of medical school and into my dedicated study period. I also used the NBME exams and the NBME Free 120. So without further ado, let's get into the actual study schedule. One thing that you're going to notice as we work through this 8-week study schedule is that the first couple of weeks tend to be heavier on acquiring and reviewing a lot of information. These first couple of weeks are very, very high volume in terms of review. This schedule is meant so that your 8th week is more of a self-study week, and then you are meant to take your exam on the 9th week with this study schedule. I will talk more about how I used and made minor changes throughout the video, and a little bit more at the end in terms of what to do once you reach the end of this schedule and how your method of studying might have differed slightly from mine. So let's get started. As you will see, you will start out on a Monday, and you're going to take a benchmark NBME exam. This is going to allow you to figure out where you stand in terms of your current knowledge versus where you need to really focus in and how much work you're going to have to put in order to do well on this exam. I think I took the UWorld Self-Assessment 1 for this and did very well on it, which gave me a boost of confidence going into my dedicated period. Dedicated period is a very rough time in a medical student's life. This schedule is not going to be easy. There's no days off scheduled. But I will tell you how I got through it as we move along in the video. So, I studied by topic. Most of those topics are going to be systems based at the beginning, and then they will go into um, microbiology, pharmacology, and biochemistry towards the end, as well as immunology. I started off with my strongest subject, knowing that this is material that I likely had a good grasp on already, and I would not need to review right before the exam. That was cardiology for me. You can always tweak this schedule and move around the days for the material that you think is easiest and you have already mastered before beginning preparation for the USMLE Step 1 exam. I would always look prior to starting studying at how long the first aid chapters were, and then I would give that particular chapter the approximate number of days that I would need, and then I would divide the total amount of pages within that chapter by those days. So, for example, if cardiology had 30 pages in the entire chapter, I was going to be studying 10 pages of cardiology each day in order to finish the chapter in 3 days. I would also follow that up after reading my 10 pages first thing in the morning with a UWorld block. Now, once I started dedicated, I was doing untimed, random tutor blocks. That's how I was using my UWorld settings. Prior to dedicated, I was doing systems-based or topic-based UWorld questions on untimed and tutor mode. But once I got into my dedicated, I was doing them completely random. This allowed me to keep seeing material that I wasn't actively studying throughout my entire dedicated period. So as you will see, these first couple of weeks kind of follow the exact same flow. You're going to start your morning with first aid. You're going to follow that up with a 40 block UWorld questions. After that, you're going to review the UWorld block that you just did. Okay, what do you do? What are you reviewing out of this block? Personally, I reviewed two types of questions. Questions that I got wrong and questions that I only got correct by guess. After I reviewed this block of UWorld that I did in the morning, it was likely going to be around lunchtime. And so I would take an hour lunch break every single day after I reviewed my UWorld block. I would come back from lunch and I would review the pathoma chapter that corresponded to the topic that I was studying that day. Many times it might be one pathoma chapter. Many times it could be several that relate to that topic. As you can see for cardiology, both the cardio and the vascular pathoma chapters will be covered during the cardiology block of the schedule. Keep in mind, I used pathoma throughout my second year of medical school in order to really get a good grasp on the pathology section in didactics. And so these videos had already been seen, and I had already read the book for these corresponding chapters 1 or 2 times prior. So I felt comfortable at this point in time to review and watch the videos in 1.5 times speed. This may or may not work for you, depending on how many times you've seen the material or reviewed through the Pathoma book. I would follow Pathoma up with an hour of flashcards, either from Anki or from Quizlet. And that was essentially all of the really rough and tough studying that I would do for the day. Typically, I would start watching videos about mid-afternoon, and I would watch Sketchy Micro and Farm as well as Pixarize. How did I watch these videos, and how did it work for me to retain this information for a long period of time? I would start watching the video, scroll all the way to the end, take a screenshot of the picture with all of the symbols already on it. I would then take that screenshot and post it into my note-taking app, which I used Notability. I would then go back to the beginning of the video and annotate the picture that I had taken with the notes as the video progressed. This allowed me not only to understand each one of these topics, but also to understand why the symbols were what they were and allow me to solidify the meaning of those symbols with each video, as they are all used in each video to mean the same thing. For example, if an organism is treated by penicillin, you're always going to see a purple pencil in the animation. I would then follow it up for my biochemistry in terms of the pathways and diseases with the pixarized videos, and I would do the same thing as I would for the sketchy videos. You will see that there's not very many pixarized videos in the schedule in relation to the sketchy micro and farm, and so I set this schedule up as to you being able to finish the videos well before the schedule is done, so you don't have to continue to watch all of these videos all 8 weeks. As we move on to week 2, you're going to notice that this is a week that's completely learning new information or reviewing information that you already know. So again, you're going to be reading your first aid chapter corresponding to whatever either organ system or topic that you're studying. You're going to be doing your 40 URL blocks on random, untimed tutor mode, if that's what you would like. If you want timed and non-tutored, that's fine as well, but be sure that you're doing them randomly. You're going to be reviewing them, and then you're going to be watching your Pathoma. However, one thing that you're going to be noticing that's a little bit different is there's going to be instances where you can review incorrects. This is going to be a time where you can go back and look at your incorrect questions from the UWorld blocks that you've done in order to get spaced repetition and to solidify information that you're maybe having difficulties on. By Wednesday, you should have enough UWorld incorrect questions built up in order to do a block solely of UWorld incorrects. If you have several hundred UWorld incorrects at this point, I would recommend doing a 40 block or question block. However, for me personally, I only had maybe around 100 UWorld incorrects at this point in time, so I didn't want to run out of them, and I only did one UWorld block of 20 questions, only incorrects. Again, you're going to go through, you're going to do all of your Pathoma on 1.5 times speed. And this week is jam-packed of learning and reviewing material. You're going to get to week 3, and things kind of start to change. As you can see, there's no longer any pixarized videos that you should be watching. You've already covered all the biochemistry that is high yield on the exam. You're going to be studying some neurology, some psychiatry, and then you're going to see that there's 2 days where you're not assigned a system or topic to study. This review time is a time for you to go back and study topics that you've already reviewed in the first 2 weeks and into the 3rd week that you've still had trouble on. I kept a running tally in a notebook of topics that I thought I needed to take another look at this time. You're going to follow up that review with 2 blocks of 40 questions each on random untimed tutor mode or whatever mode suits you. You're then going to review those blocks, do your flashcards, and you're going to watch your sketchy micro and farm videos, just like you have on the days prior. There's also time in the evenings and late afternoons to catch up on any material that you may not have gotten to on the days or days leading up to that particular day. On days that I didn't have anything acute to look at, for example, on some of these Saturday afternoons, I would take off around 3 to 4 and relax for the rest of the day. Now, on week 4, you're going to take your second NBME exam. You're also going to review your NBME exam on this Sunday. At this point in time, you should see a big jump in your NBME score as you have reviewed a ton of material. If you're not seeing that big of a jump, don't get discouraged though, because you're still going to be reviewing all of the organ systems in your UWorld blocks, and there's time for you to catch up on things that you might be missing consistently. You're going to start back up on Monday reviewing organ systems and continue this same path all the way through the week. You're going to follow it up on Sunday with another NBME exam where you should still continue to see your scores increase. When you're reviewing these NBME exams, be sure to take very detailed notes and review them consistently because it's important to get the idea of how the USMLE exam will be described. Now you have reviewed most of the high yield organ systems that are going to be covered on the USMLE Step 1 exam. Next, you're going to do biochem, which you should be relatively comfortable with as you've already finished all of the pixarized videos. There's a couple of things that I wanted to point out, though, as it relates to biochem. Some of these things you will not need to memorize, in my opinion. What should you know from the biochem portion? Know the biochemical diseases like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and osteogenesis imperfecta, those collagen diseases that are due to collagen synthesis defects. Know the genetic diseases and know their inheritance patterns. Know the lab techniques like your PCR, your blots. Know the different genetic ways of looking at genetic material. So either your karyotype, your FISH, your microarray. Know your trinucleotide repeat expansion disorders and know what the repeat is and how it affects the presentation of the disease. The vitamins are important to know what they're, good for, but don't memorize every little thing about the vitamins. The reward versus sacrifice is not going to pay out, in my opinion. Same goes for immunology. Get the diseases down, but you don't actually have to really memorize, the CCRX4 for HIV does what? You're not going to be asked those questions. And the amount of brain power that it takes to memorize all of that stuff is not going to be equal to the reward that you will see on the exam. Coming into, I believe, week number 5 or 6 now, you're going to start off again with another week of an NBME exam. Once you've taken that exam and reviewed it, you're going to enter the next Monday studying micro. This next 4 days should be relatively light in terms of accumulating new information as you've been studying micro the entire schedule and by watching the sketchy videos. You're going to continue doing your UWorld blocks. You're going to continue reviewing those and you're going to continue your flashcards. You're also going to start wrapping up your sketchy micro and farm videos. MSK is going to have 1 day this week where you study what's in first aid as well as what's in pathoma. Dermatology is going to have one day this week, same type schedule. You're going to come on back on Sunday, starting with another system-based learning, where you're going to do 3 days of repro, followed by 2 days of pharmacology. Again, not necessarily learning a whole lot of new information on Wednesday or Thursday, as you've been learning all the pharmacology that you need to know for the exam through watching the sketchy videos. Finally, Friday and Saturday of this week are going to be another one of those days where you can cover topics that you've been having quite a bit of difficulty on throughout the previous weeks in your studying. You're also going to be doing 2 40-question UWorld blocks this day and reviewing those, as well as doing some more flashcards. Throughout this entire time, you're going to have plenty of time in the evenings in order to catch up on things that you haven't gotten around to quite yet, as well as time to relax. Okay. So you finally made it to the very last week of the schedule, week number 8. This week was really meant for a self-study week as you begin to really refine those topics that you're having problems on and solidify those, as well as get some last-minute details in before you take the exam the following week. I will preface that I did one complete passive UWorld throughout my second year of medical school, followed by a hard reset before I started my dedicated period. During my dedicated period, I only got through about 50% of the entire UWorld question bank. And so if your goal is to do 2 complete passes, you're going to need to do one of 2 things. Either increase the number of questions you're doing per day or increase the number of weeks that you're willing to study. For me, I thought that 1.5 passes was plenty. I started this last week off with an NBME exam just to confirm that I was ready for my test. I then thought that I would need to cover pathology one last time, as everyone that had taken the exam before me said that pathology was very high yield. Keep in mind that I had already seen the pathoma videos at least 2 to 3 times at this point. So I felt comfortable covering 3 chapters per day on 2 times speed and working through the entire book this last week. If you're very strong in pathology and don't feel like this is going to be useful for you, by all means, use this time for something else. I would say that there's 4 things this week that are absolutely non-negotiable, and those being the NBME exam that you will take on Sunday, the Boards and Beyond biostats and epidemiology videos that you'll watch on Monday, the Dirty Medicine ethics videos on Tuesday, and the free 120 on Wednesday. I will say those things are mostly going to be new material. If your medical school is anything like mine, I didn't really get a good grasp on especially ethics and biostats when it was taught the first time. And so I wanted this to be very fresh on my mind. There is a little bit of a caveat in relation to the biostats, however. I did not memorize a single formula for biostats, only how those formulas applied to questions and how you could use the formulas to get to an answer. I did not have to calculate a single thing on the exam though, and knowing the formulas would have only added more headache during the dedicated period. Once I got out to Saturday, I studied for about half a day on this day, took the rest of the afternoon off, and then I took the entire Sunday off before my exam on Monday. I ended up testing about an hour away from my house, and so the Sunday evening before I took my exam, I took a ZQL, probably around 6:30 or 7, and I passed out. I wanted to be sure that I was going to get a good night's sleep. However, I don't recommend this if those types of medications make you groggy the next day. I got to my testing center about 45 minutes early because I'd never been there before and I didn't really know what to expect. They got me checked in and they let me start my exam probably about 30 minutes early because the check-in process didn't take very long. I had been eating and drinking whatever I wanted throughout my dedicated period. And so I didn't take any special snacks or food items with me to the testing center. I took some Gatorade. I had a coffee in the morning on the drive over, and I took a sandwich for lunch and just some various snack foods. The good thing is that you're able to like leave the testing center during your breaks. So I ended up, going out, getting fresh air. I took my lunch to my vehicle and ate it there. And so it's just really nice to have that type of freedom. How did I use my break time? So I took about 15 to 20 minutes after every second block. Um, I felt like this was a must. Uh, do whatever you want, but I think that for me, throughout my entire dedicated, I used social media. Um, I got on social media during my breaks. I talked to my friends. I did all of that in order to relax and get my mind off of the exam. That can be something to cause undue stress, though. So don't use your phone if it's going to cause you to stress out. Don't study if it's going to cause you to stress out. Also, be sure that you pack a bunch of pain meds, ibuprofen, I don't think Tylenol does a whole lot for pain, but just something, because the last thing you want is to have either like your back hurting from an uncomfortable chair or a headache on block two, knowing that you have a whole bunch of blocks left and it's going to be an absolute struggle to get through the test. Also, if you have any chronic conditions, like I have chronic migraine, so I took my breakthrough migraine medication with me just in case I got a migraine on the day of the test. I took my exam in the sweltering heat of Texas, and I wore jeans and a jacket because my testing center was freezing. Be sure that you dress for cold weather, even though I took mine in the summertime. In many parts of the world, it's going to be hot. However, the testing centers are always cold, so be sure that you're comfortable. Finally, I know it sounds crazy to say this, but go into the exam with a have fun attitude. You've worked very hard to get to the point where you are. You've compiled all the knowledge that you will need in order to pass the exam. And it's important to have a healthy understanding that there's going to be questions on this exam that you have absolutely zero clue about. It happens to everyone. Um, on those questions, I gave them my best educated guess and I moved on without having a second thought. Um, if you sat there and dwell on those questions in which you don't have any idea about, you're going to do a few things. You're going to throw off and second guess questions that you do know, and you're going to waste precious time. In fact, if I didn't know the question that I was on after reading it, I literally skipped it and went back to it at the very end of the block after I'd finished all the questions that I was confident about. Um, most of the questions are going to be very straightforward. You're going to be able to rule out all of the easily, incorrect answers and get most of them down to at least two before you actually have to start putting in a lot of thought and effort into getting the correct answer. But like I said, don't dwell on the questions that you don't know. It's only going to make the test harder and it's going to mess you up on questions that you would have otherwise got right. Finally, once you finish the test, you're going to feel very strange if you're anything like me. I was relieved that I had got the test over. I was confident that I had got enough questions correct to pass. But I didn't necessarily feel good and I didn't feel bad. And I think most of that is due to the fact that you've built up all of this anxiety regarding one of the most important exams of your life. And you still really don't have any answers as to how you did officially, right? So I didn't really start feeling good until I got my score report back like 3 weeks later. Um, with that being said, it's normal to feel like you did bad. Um, I will say, like, of all the questions that I really wanted to remember on the exam, I could only remember the ones that were very easy and very straightforward, yet I had made stupid mistakes on and got them wrong. Talk to anyone, everyone has that same story. But it is, the truth. Don't stress about it though. I hope this video has helped you in making preparations for your USMLE Step 1 exam. Please give this a like, a thumbs up, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be lots of exciting and new things coming out, including a Step 2 video about a schedule for Step 2, and then a lecture series for Step 3 and my path to studying for Step 3. If you have any questions, please comment down below. I will try my best to get around to every question that's asked. However, it's most important that you subscribe and like the video and share with your friends, as I'm not compensated by this in any way. And growing the YouTube channel would be a very big help to me to keep these videos coming out.